Hey everyone, I'm Carlene Dandridge, and I'm presenting on the Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian by Sherman Alexie. I thought this was an incredibly profound and interesting depiction of the reservation life for the average American Indian. Uh, until recently, I had taken an ethnic studies class a couple semesters back at Sac State, and I was completely unaware of the life of one who lives on these reservations. They suffer a great deal with poverty and alcoholism, and there's incredibly high suicide rates due to depression and not being able to get out of that poverty. And I had absolutely no idea until taking that ethnic studies class a few semesters back. And so when I started reading this book, I wasn't totally surprised by what Junior is experiencing, or what Sherman Alexie writes for Junior. So to start, like I said, I really loved it. It was super sad for me, even though a lot of it was supposed to be funny. He tries to make his situation funny, and but there were some really intense parts. I definitely related to it. I think that everyone at some point or another really struggles to find themselves and figure out who they are and their purpose, especially in our teenage years, when we're changing so much mentally and physically and hormonally, and we feel lost, and we want to find purpose in a place and to know who we are. And I think especially in those teenagers, it's exceedingly difficult. So Sherman, Alexi takes those issues that we already have as a teenager and then adds on top of it. Let's make this kid Arnold live on a reservation where life is even more extreme and horrible. So yeah, it was really intense for me. There were so many issues that I related to in this book, with Arnold struggling to find his identity. It was so difficult for him to be a part of different social groups. And I can definitely relate to that. In high school and in college, trying to figure out the group of people who are similar to me. And there's this need for a sense of belongingness that I think we all have. We all want to be accepted. And I think that's what Junior was trying to figure out for himself. And so I think for Junior, what was really a thing was that he wanted more, and he knew there was more for him. And so he was just like having a really difficult time. And so I think anyone that read this book will say, point out the big obvious parts that were really hard to read. Like, it's that I related to, especially the part with his dad shooting his dog was extremely hard for me. I'm a huge animal lover. I think the biggest turning point for me in this book was when Mr. P, Junior's teacher, when he has that breakdown in class, and he realizes that the book that he's using is also the book that his mom was using. I mean, and it's outdated by decades. And so he has that breakdown and throws his book at Mr. P, which is like super crazy, but it gets even more intense when Mr. P comes to his house and he starts talking to him about confessing, and kind of almost, I think he was crying in that scene where he's saying that as an instructor, he was taught to kill the Indian culture. I think, what does he say? I wrote it down. Mr. P, let's see. Well, oh yeah, when he says, we were supposed to kill the Indian to save the child. And I think that was on page 40, basically saying that we would try and beat the Indian out of the kids. And it's just a really significant moment because Mr. P gives Junior so much hope with this. He's and motivation. Ultimately this leads Junior to wanting to transfer to the Reardon school, which he does, and which he's forms this other identity. And um, it's a really powerful moment. At least for me, it was really powerful because it's what we kind of learned in ethnic studies, is that they were like trying to disempower the Indians in any way they possibly could from the beginning. Since we first came to this country, they were trying to, take away their culture and basically, I mean, kill them in every which way they could. And this teacher even confesses to it. And so I think in that he has that moment where he's like, wow, like they really are trying to keep me down, but they're not going to. He's going to prevail. And he does. And he goes to this school and he becomes a super cool basketball player. And yeah, so that's that.